Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. So welcome to the introduction to the course on speaking Arabic. So let's just get right into it. So to talk about the status quo a little bit, most Muslims, if you're watching this and you're a Muslim, you probably learned how to read Arabic as a kid, right? And the reason for that is you need to read the Quran and learn all these du'as and the way to pray and all these different things. But you kind of grow up and you read and you read, and then you realize, I actually don't know what I'm saying. So, and this is exactly what happened to me and many other people. Then you go take some Arabic courses, right? You look online, or you go to your community and you try to find an Arabic course. And what do you find? You find a bunch of grammar, right? You start your Arabic course and they start teaching you ism, fi'l, harf, all these grammar rules. And honestly, it's just boring, right? And you know, it's so boring that most people quit, right? And I mean, unless you're really a nerd and you really love grammar, it's very tough. Now, let's say you gun through it, right? Let's say you actually finish it, and you go through these grammar rules. You end up not being able to speak very well. And I actually know people who went through full courses, 10-month programs, at different Arabic institutions and things like that. And they cannot speak very well, right? So, and then there's the other option. You can go to a college that teaches Arabic, right? So I took some Arabic courses at my college, and they teach a lot of dialect. So a lot of the Egyptian Arabic, a lot of the Shami Arabic, and they teach a little bit of classical Arabic too. So it's very scattered in terms of focus. And you get through one semester or 2 semesters, and if you already learned to read Arabic, half the course is about reading Arabic. So you relearn to read Arabic, then you go through, half a semester of speaking Arabic, and you're learning a little bit of Egyptian, a little bit of Shami, a little bit of Fusha, and then you learn a lot of nothing, right? So unless you take maybe like a year, 2 years of Arabic, or you minor in Arabic, or do something like that, those courses really don't benefit, especially if your focus is on understanding and learning the Quran. So, what's this course all about? This course is focused on speaking and comprehending Arabic from day one, right? Language, as people of language would tell you, is not useful in terms of theoretical knowledge. Because if you learn theoretical, you will forget it. Language is something, you use it or you lose it, right? So, you need to have knowledge you can use from day one, right? And that's what this course is about. It's going to be based on Fusha rather than Ammiyah. So what is Fusha and what is Ammiyah? There's really 2 types of Arabic, right? Fusha is classical Arabic, right? The type of stuff you see in newspapers and books and textbooks. And the Quran also is Fusha, right? And then Ammiyah is the dialect, right? The way people speak in different countries. So each country has its own dialect. Morocco has its own dialect. Egypt has its own dialect. Syria has its own dialect. Yemen has its own dialect, right? And Ammiyah in general, if you say you studied Arabic, most people assume you're talking about Fusha. Because Ammiyah you can just pick up if you're in the right environment, right? Whereas Fusha you have to learn in a classroom. So this is based on Fusha. So the book that we're going to use is called Arabiyah Bayna Yadaik, which means Arabic between your hands. And there's 3 books, so we're going to focus on book 1. Right, and book 1 is basically a book of conversations. So we're going to have several conversations, right? Like one chapter has 3 conversations, and we will memorize those conversations. Now you might be saying, what good is memorizing a script when language is something that's very fluid and it's very, rapidly changing? It's kind of random. You don't know what's coming your way in a conversation, right? So what is memorization good for? And that's where we get into customization. So we're going to memorize these conversations, and then we're going to build a machine, right, that is going to allow us to customize those conversations. But the most important thing here is to be able to have something that's useful. So inshallah, we're going to take these things piecemeal, one at a time. And by the end of this course, and in fact, even towards the beginning, you'll be able to speak very basic Arabic. And as we progress, your understanding will become deeper and deeper and deeper. So how do you win the most out of this course, right? So imagine this course is kind of like a challenge to yourself, right? And you want to win the challenge, right, of understanding Arabic. So when you come across a word that you're unfamiliar with, write it down, right? And anyone who's a student understands the power of writing, right? Writing is one of those things that really improves your memory because it involves a lot of different senses, right? You have to see, you have to think, you have to write with your hands. So the more senses you involve into a learning process, the easier it is to memorize that thing, right? So if you involve your ears, if you involve your eyes, if you involve your speech and your hands, then all of your senses are really involved, right? And this is where the second part comes in, practicing your conversations. Really, when you go through a conversation, if you study this with a friend, this will be much easier, right? You can role play the conversation with your friend, or you could stand in the mirror and, kind of talk to yourself. And I know you're going to look kind of insane, but it's justified because you're just learning something good. And inshallah, when you know Arabic and all your friends don't, then who's going to look like they're insane, right? So the last thing is, it's a long process, right? So obviously, any language that you learn, there's a lot of vocabulary that you have to go through. There's a lot of memorization, and it's a long journey. So just enjoy the process, right? Enjoy your progress, right? That you go from a state where you know nothing to a state where you know a lot, right? Or you're building on that every lesson. Just enjoy the process. Take it easy, be consistent, and inshallah ta'ala, before you know it, you'll be speaking Arabic like you were born with it. So with that, we'll conclude the introduction, and then we'll get right into it. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.